A while ago, with the possible end of Inside the NBA, I wonder if Shaq would fully return to the world of cinema. After all, he had already made some notable appearances, at least enough to be relentlessly bullied for them. But is Shaq really that bad at acting? Or did he just have bad luck choosing certain roles? First of all, we need to answer how the NBA's gem that skyrocketed backboard sales in the early 90s began his career on the big screen. It definitely wasn't because some talent scout knew of his hidden acting skills. In 1993, William Friedkin offered him a role in his new movie Blue Chips.
I see a guy, Billy Friedkin, he said, "Do you know who I am?" I said, "No, sir. My name is Billy Friedkin. I directed The Exorcist." We started talking, he told me he had a project for me, we're going to do a movie. I said, "Man, I'm not an actor. Good thing for you, you just have to play a basketball player." I said, "Man, I don't know if I can do that." "Well, I'll pay you $3 million.
The deal was sealed, and of course, Shaq accepted due to his love for the arts. Clearly, the path to his first movie was much simpler. Rather than spending years studying and preparing for auditions, he just had to grow 7 feet tall and play in the NBA. A true method actor before he even knew he was going to be one. Blue Chips is a sports drama film about a college basketball coach played by Nick Nolte, known for Cape and Fear, or, for the more cultured cinephiles, as the Vietnam veteran fraud from Tropic Thunder. The coach is pressured to break the rules by illegally recruiting star players to build a winning team.
I had never heard of this movie before, and honestly, I found it pretty good. What stands out the most is definitely Nick Nolte's performance as Coach Pete. Those first 2 minutes of the movie where he's yelling at the team show the kind of character we are going to see, but what concerns us in this video is Neon Budo, the character played by Shaq.
As Friedkin mentioned, the role would be easy, or at least not an acting challenge for Shaq, since he would be playing a basketball player, and not some other more complex role like a genie from a lamp. Neon is a young man who, despite having a great talent for basketball, is not academically qualified.
But Pete will do whatever he can to recruit him for his team.
I know there aren't many appearances in this movie, but the role of the sharp and charismatic young man suits Shaq very well. I didn't notice at any point that he was a beginner in acting. It felt very natural. The film earned around $23 million against a budget of $35 million, making it a modest financial disappointment to the point that Friedkin later admitted the film was weak at the box office.
It's hard to capture in a sports film the excitement of a real game, with its own unpredictable dramatic structure and suspense. I couldn't overcome that.
In my opinion, I think the movie deserved a bit more, and for Shaq, I think it was a fairly decent debut.
It would take 2 more years for Shaq to return to the big screen, but considering how his next production ended,
maybe he should have waited for a more appropriate time. Like, for example, never! Kazaam was released in 1996, and Shaq accepted the role for almost the same reasons as in Blue Chips, his unselfish love for acting.
Then he come back, "Yeah, I got you $2 million. I was like, "No, I can't do it. I got you $5 million. Can't do it. I got you $7 million. When do you want me to start shooting?"
In the movie, Shaq plays Kazaam, or Kaz, a genie who has to grant 3 wishes to a boy named Max, who is having problems with his biological father. Meanwhile, Kaz also becomes a famous club artist and develops a friendship with Little Max.
From the generic name of the boy alone, we can tell it's not going to be a very good movie. Of course, the role of Kazaam doesn't push Shaq's acting skills to the limits, but honestly, he did have to show that he could fit into a comedy, especially one aimed at children.
Additionally, at the end of the movie, there is some drama when Kaz thinks that Max isn't alive and realizes that Max is his true friend, unlike Chuck.
You know, when Michael Jordan told me that quote, "Before you succeed, you must first know."
He didn't tell you he wanted to be in Kazaam too?
I think Shaq delivers in both aspects. Nothing revolutionary or award-worthy, but he doesn't seem out of place either. In fact, the comedic part is what stands out the most. What I think happened with this movie is that even though Shaq wasn't that bad, the rest of the film was quite simple, which isn't surprising given that the idea came from a child and the script had to be ready in record time before Shaq returned to fight with Rodman.
On the other hand, when I think about it, and if we consider that it is specifically aimed at children, I think it's fine. It's somewhat entertaining and even enjoyable to some extent. The downside was that the critics didn't see it from that perspective and tore both the movie and Shaq apart. One of the few critics who gave some credit to Shaq but not to his decision to be in Kazaam was Roger Ebert, who said, "Shaq has already proven he can act. He shows he can be likable in a children's movie. What he does not show is good judgment in his choice of material." The filmmakers didn't care to extend themselves beyond the obvious commercial possibilities of their first dim idea. This obstacle in Shaq's Hollywood career wouldn't make him give up, and the following year he would accept the role of John Henry in Steel. The movie was conceived by famous producer Quincy Jones and his partner David Salzman, who were fans of the comic of the same name. The chosen director would be Kenneth Johnson, who would state that he did not feel very comfortable making a superhero film. For this reason, he adapted the superhero in his own way, wanting it to be more human, removing the cape and inventing several characters. According to Kenneth, the ideal protagonist in his view was Wesley Snipes, but Quincy was already pushing for Shaq for the role. Maybe it was for the best, as who knows if we would have had Blade if Wesley had been cast in Steel, or even more strangely, maybe Shaq as Blade. Thank God that didn't happen. In the end, Shaq would be the star in this new failure.
In the movie, he plays a retired soldier who, thanks to his army friend with the fastest wheelchair of 1997, and Uncle Joe, an old man with a junkyard filled with borderline illegal tools that are suspiciously perfect for creating a suit to fight against gangs that are making weapons with the new technology. Like Kazaam, the movie's story feels simple and quickly made, which was indeed the case.
Johnson claimed to have been rushed to complete the script, and it had to be PG-13, which removed much of the comic's essence, something that Ryan Reynolds probably learned. The final product was quite mediocre, with not standout actors and a superficial story. Watching it for this video, I think it's so bad that it's sometimes laughable or simply ridiculous. If in the previous films I thought Shaq had met expectations, in this one I think is quite the opposite. But to be fair, I think most of the cast wasn't good either, and the script didn't help. Years later, director Kenneth also admitted that Shaq was not the best choice.
No shit, Sherlock!
In an interview, he mentioned,
but of course we get back to the fact that he was not an actor. It was print and pickup for pretty much every other line in order to get it right, because he normally couldn't get through the whole scene. Bless his heart, he just wasn't really trained for it. After this, Shaq would not stand out as much in movies. There was a long period when he would only make cameos, appearing as himself in films like Good Burger, He Got Game, Freddy Got Finger, or After the Sunset. His next phase, and the second most famous after Kazaam, would be his comedy phase. In Scary Movie 4, he would start what would later become more common. He began to shape a role of someone that's not very intelligent, who does absurd things. The mastermind behind this would be Adam Sandler. Shaq would appear in productions like Jack and Jill, Grown Ups 2, Blended, and Hubie Halloween, where he would play a secondary role of someone who appears almost exclusively to do absurd things.
it's not as if these Shaq's roles cannot be analyzed too seriously, or, well, yeah, they cannot be analyzed seriously. Forget it. The point is that these movies, for what they were created for, Shaq was the right choice. Even if that meant crying, enjoying a pool while keeping everyone away, or simply doing belly dancing. After reviewing all his roles, I think we can sum up Shaq's acting career as someone who didn't take any risks with deep roles, and when perhaps had more screen time, as in Steel, it became quite clear that Kazaam was the wrongfully accused bully target. However, for roles where only charisma and being funny were needed, I think he delivered, though not at a great level, but still quite enjoyably. The curious thing is that, according to Shaq, his Hollywood career is not over and he aspires to be the next Rock, acting in dramas or action films. If that happens, I guess I'll have to make another video.